Hey, everybody out in social media and YouTube world. Pastor Dan here. And it's been a little while since I've come on to do one of these live streams. And I'm glad to be with you tonight. And I'm coming on quite a bit earlier than I normally would. But I have some things that I want to talk with you about this evening. It's a little bit after 5 o'clock, about 20 after 5. And actually, it's 5:18 to be exact. So those of you who are rewatching this, thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope tonight is really a word of encouragement for you. I hope it's a word of hope. I hope it's a word of challenge too. We find ourselves in some challenging times, don't we? First of all, we've been navigating the unknowns and whatnot with this global pandemic, COVID-19. And then on top of that, we're dealing with the challenges socially that we see around us really going on across our nation as we deal with the issues of racism and bigotry and prejudice. And we as a church are getting out on the front lines of that because I believe it reflects the heart of Jesus. In fact, the scripture says he's sent me to bind the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captive, for the oppressed. And so as I look at Jesus and I look at his life, I believe just as well that Jesus would go running into these situations to speak into them in a way that honored his Father, honored the dignity of every human being. And so we've done that, and boy, it's been a challenging time, hasn't it? And some of you layer on top of that the challenges of life, right? We have things in our lives. If you're raising a family, if you're in a marriage, if you're working every day, if you are in relationships, we layer into COVID and we layer into the social issues around us and whatnot, and then our own lives on top of that. Some of you went into this with your own sets of physical challenges, emotional challenges, relational challenges, spiritual challenges. And inevitably, what ends up happening is emotions begin to run high. I've experienced some of that, and to be very truthful with you, I had to take a break. I had to take a break in a sense from all of the media outlets, if you will, outside of what was really essential, to really just come up for air, to take a breath, to rest, to do a little bit of soul searching, to have some conversation with people in my life that speak in, can kind of walk me through and talk me through. And here I am. I'm back. It's good. It's good to be back with you tonight and to talk with you for just a few minutes. And for those of you that may be coming on for the first time, we've kind of had a phrase here in all this, and it's been this, where we just want to choose faith over fear and peace over panic, worship over worry, and assurance over anxiety. And I find in my own life, those are choices that I make around disciplines in my life so that the outcomes can be the very healthiest that they possibly can be. And so that's why we do this. And you, by the way, if you want to let other people know, they can follow me on Facebook at either at the Bridge Church or Dan Quagliata. As always, if you have questions tonight, do me a favor, just put them in the comment section and I will try to answer them. You may have some questions, you may have some feedback, whatever it might be. But I'd love to be able to answer the questions that you have. And you know what? Follow us at thebridgeli.com on the web. Love to have you join us on Sunday at 9:30 and 11:15 and 1:15 in Spanish at thebridgeli.com. Our live services have really been a blessing, and so much of your feedback has been just wonderful. I want to take you to a passage of scripture tonight that I hope you will find very helpful. And it comes out of the book of Ephesians. And that book was written by the Apostle Paul. In fact, the Bible that you potentially could hold in your hands today, the second half of that Bible, the New Testament, we call it, more than 2/3 of the New Testament was written by this guy. And one of my favorite letters that he wrote to the church way back then was in a place called Ephesus, a place not very different from New York or Detroit, kind of a port city, if you will. A lot of activity, a lot of commerce, kind of an epicenter for the economy, if you will. They're in the Mediterranean rim, and he writes these words to them in this letter to them, and we have it in a place called chapter 4. And he says this, therefore, each of you should put off falsehood and speak truthfully to each other, because we're all members of each other. In other words, we're all connected. And I love that idea of truth telling, because there's nothing that destroys trust more than not feeling like you might know the truth and only realizing that you don't. Right? Think about that in a relationship. Think about that in a work environment. Think about that in any place where you are looking at interacting with somebody. And truth is kind of a bedrock for trust. And then he says this, but he goes, you can be angry, but don't sin. Don't let the sun set upon your anger, and don't give the devil a foothold. I love that idea that deal with your anger. Deal with your anger. When you're interacting with others and interacting with people, he says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. In fact, sometimes we misinterpret that and say that, if you get angry, that's wrong. And actually what the passage says is you can be angry, just don't sin in your anger. Right? So in these times of emotions and all of what we're thinking and what we're feeling and what we feel like we're going through, and things are just ready to kind of spout out, whatever it might be, relationships are being tested and all of that. He says, look, be truthful. Be truthful with each other. Be vulnerable. Be transparent. Hey, listen, we belong to each other as part of God's people, as the human race. He says, and you can be angry from time to time. Just don't sin. Don't let by the way, if you do get angry, try not to let the sun go down on your anger. Don't give the devil a foothold. And here's what I find: when you let things fester, when you let them fester, that is a field day for the enemy. He loves when you let things fester. He goes on and he says, if you're stealing, don't steal anymore. But you got to work doing something good with your own hands, that you'll have something to share with those in need. But then I love this. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what's helpful for building up the person who's in need and bringing grace to those who listen. Don't let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what's helpful for the person who has need, and that brings a sense of grace to those who are listening. That to me has become a mantra, if you will. It's become a guiding light, a guidepost. I've not always been the best at this, I have to tell you. I think some of it might be cultural, some of it might be background and all of that. We bring our hurts and we bring our pain into every situation that we're in, particularly the stuff that's not dealt with. And sometimes out of the overflow of what's going on in our hearts, the mouth starts to speak, right? Quick shameless plug. This Sunday at the Bridge at 9:30 and 11:15, if you just visit thebridgeali.com, I'm starting a brand new series called Me and My Big Mouth. Me and My Big Mouth. And I just encourage you to check out that series and engage with it. And so I just want to talk to you as you are thinking about emotions and how emotions can well up. Sometimes we don't know where they're always coming from. Let me give you 4 things around emotional health that are by no means exhaustive in any way, but are some things I might encourage you to think about. Okay, here is the first one. Okay, control your outputs. Control your outputs. In other words, really scrutinize yourself. What you're saying, how you're interacting, how you're utilizing your phone calls and emails, text messages. You can think about that with social media. Control your outputs. Think about self-control when it comes to not only what you say, but how you say it. But let me give you a second one. Control your inputs. Control your inputs. I've had to be very deliberate as of late to just be cautious about the inputs in my life. I've even done something kind of kind of funny in that because I'm an extrovert and I love people. And sometimes I don't have the greatest boundaries in how I maybe manage relationships or all of the input. So I discovered this crazy little thing on my phone where you can have a favorites list. And I thought to myself, who would be the people in my life who I want to have what I call the all access pass? Well, there's 3 right off the bat. Their names are Nicholas, Nathan, and Jill. Nicholas, Nathan, and Jill. They are right off the bat. Then it might be my mom and dad. It might be some other relatives in my life. There might be a very, very, very short list of friends that I would put on that. They're the ones that are really as close to me as my own family would be. But here's what that means. When I'm out and about and I'm taking downtime or I'm with my kids, focused on them, that do not disturb list, make sure that I'm not getting notified when there's a call or a text. It's not beeping or buzzing or ringing. And then when I decide that the time has come that I can now give some focus to that, I can do that. But it doesn't interrupt the things where I'm trying to stay focused. I'm finding I have to do that with everything. How often I check email, how often I look down at my phone, how often I'm utilizing some social media platforms and all of that. And so again, control your outputs. That's going to be largely in part with what comes out of here. But control your inputs. The relationships in your life, the people that are really you're letting get close right now. Okay, you want to control those inputs so you can stay in a healthy place. Here's a third thing. Think about the long-term results of short-term choices. And think about that, Jill and I, my wife and I were just talking about that. And, sometimes emotions run hot and the kids are doing their thing. And it's like they have days where it's like, oh my gosh, who are you? And then maybe we're getting at each other and we say to ourselves, you know what? We don't ever want to argue to the point where things could be said in such a way that we really regret it later on, or it becomes hard to forget, or whatever it might be. And so in that case, you exercise forgiveness. You let your speech be seasoned with grace. That whole idea of so that it benefits those who are listening, we think about the fact that our children hear a lot. They hear more than we ever think they hear. But think about the long-term consequences or results of your short-term choices. And then here's number 4. Remember, when it comes to people, there's always a story behind the story. We don't know what they're going through. I had an interaction with a good friend recently, and just so much emotion was kind of bubbling out. And I said to him, "You're under a lot of stress, aren't you?" And I heard a deep breath, and he said, I am, Dan. He goes, I'm sorry for how I reacted, how I responded, how I came out the gate. I said, I figured I was out of character for you. And so we talked about that. And so I hope this was helpful for you tonight as you think about your emotional health during this season of our lives and this season of time. Let me just give those to you one more time. All right. Control your outputs. Control your inputs. Control your outputs. What's coming out? Control your inputs. Everything that's coming in. Think about the long-term results of your short-term choices. Think about that call. Think about that conversation. Think about that text. Think about that response. Think about that post, whatever it might be. All right. Think about those things. Those are important. All right. Sometimes it's better to be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. The book of James in the New Testament teaches us that. And then remember, when it comes to people, there's always a story behind the story. Choose grace. And at times you don't choose grace, choose forgiveness. Choose forgiveness. It's just such a better way. So thank you so much. Thanks for being on the call tonight. Maria, it's good to see you. Antoinette, good to see you. Sue, San Filippo, so good to see you. Donna, Antoinette, others. I'm glad to have you guys on tonight. I hope this was helpful for you. These are quick, and so it's hard to be exhaustive in it. But I just maybe try to cast some nuggets out your way and acknowledge that I've by no means arrived in any of this. I'm still a work in progress. I wish I could go and take some things back sometimes, or responses back, or reactions back. But what I found is that the most deep and meaningful relationships in my life, the people who are really have stuck through it with me, and they know my heart, they know my intention, they're the ones quick to say, Dan, we understand. We can't even imagine what you're going through. We forgive you, or we walk with grace with you. And inevitably they make it to the favorites list, those friendships that have stood the test of time for a long, long time, where you know people and you're known by them, and they're willing to walk with you and love you through it. It's really, really a great thing. And couldn't we use some of that right now to let our speech be seasoned with grace, to watch our anger and the responses to it, control the inputs and the outputs, know that there's a story behind the story in people's lives, and it helps to be able to learn that and think about the long-term results of your short-term choices. Boy, wouldn't that apply to everything, right? Relationships, money, how you utilize your money, decisions that you make, big career moves, things that you buy. Wow, that one's a little bit of gold. Your short-term choices have long-term consequences. Just think about those things. Okay. Hey, God bless you, everybody. It was great to be with you tonight. And thank you for praying for me. I appreciate that, Jenny. It's great to see you. Great to have you all on. A bunch of folks will go on tonight at 7 o'clock, and they'll rewatch this. And I hope it blesses you in every single way. I love you all. My heart's with you. Been praying for you literally every day. And believing God for great things in your life. Shirley, good to see you. And Betsy, good to see you. Praying for you, encouraging you, and doing this crazy thing called life. God bless you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful night.